Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is David and today I'm joined again by Chris and Mark as we have yet more FPL price reveals. It's day two of a very exciting week. A bit of deja vu really. Lunchtime again, price reveals again, Chris and Mark again. How are you guys doing?
All good. It's day two in the price reveal camp. So Big Brother there, people probably Big Brother's so old now. I'm obviously the oldest person of this, probably not in fantasy, but in this group. But I remember the old Big Brother days. It is day two, but it's still exciting. Loads of stuff happened today, which we'll talk about. Chelsea out, West Ham out, loads of the teams out. And we just had another one come out.
Just had Crystal Palace.
It's Crystal Palace just dropped as we went live. Wow. Okay, so it's all happening in the Big Brother house.
Exclusive.
Do you want to talk about Palace? What do you want to do? You're in charge, David. What do you want to do? You want to talk about Palace? It just dropped.
Well, Mark seems to be the man literally on the button. So over to you, Mark. But I mean, you don't even have to say hello, like yesterday.
Hello, Mark. Sorry, I can't.
Well, first of all, hello. Secondly, as well as getting Eze's 6.5 price yesterday, we now know that Sam Johnston in goal 4.5, Tyrick Mitchell 4.5, Mark Guehi. I always get that wrong.
Easy for you to say.
4.5, and Edward up front is 5.5. And he seemed to be Hodgson's preferred striker after two towards the end. So that could be interesting.
Wow. Yeah. They're good prices there. It's nice to see that they're still all like a 4.5 million defence because, their defence actually was looking quite nice under Hodgson as well, back end of last season. What's your initial reaction to that then, Chris? Are you excited about Crystal Palace? I mean, the main draw is good. We're going to talk about Chelsea in a minute, but it's all happening. So Crystal Palace,
I'm excited about Crystal Palace. I'm mainly excited because Ted Lasso was filmed at Crystal Palace. That's my main thing that makes me excited about Crystal Palace. No, I think at the prices. The interesting thing is everyone's obviously getting. No one's going. Oh, my first name on the team sheet is Palace player, right? That's not going to happen. But like you said, with the 4.5s, the 5.5s, these are going to be really important players because they're going to be kind of, filler once you've kind of realised you can't have everybody you want this season, or you can. I don't know. But hopefully you're going to need to be going to more teams this year than we did last year, and you can't just rely on 3 from City, 3 from Arsenal, a couple of United, a couple of Liverpool. So these prices are really relevant, and it's good to see that. I think it's good to see they're keeping these prices low so that people will consider and will use them. I think Johnston could be interesting. Yeah, I think I don't have the stats for clean sheets at the end of the season. I'm not even going to put that on Mark either because he might not have them either. But I think they looked a lot tighter, obviously, when Hodgson came in, and he's obviously still there. So I think the Palace defence, or a 4.5 keeper might be an option. I don't know. It might be something to consider. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, they did keep a few. I've just got the results up now under Hodgson. They beat Bournemouth 2-0, 0-0 home draw with Everton. So and one at Southampton as well. So yeah, just Hodgson just improved them in general. Now whether he can maintain that over this season, we'll find out. But yeah, as far as the 4.5 goalkeepers that we know of so far, whether. The thing is Johnston definitely number one over Guaita?
It felt that way. It felt that way towards the back end of the season. I think Guaita did have an injury, but I suppose a good point here is we do need to see what Guaita's price is because I think in previous years he's come in at 5 million. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you how often that's happened, or even if it was necessarily the most recent campaign. But we've seen that before, and. Not that the FPL prices will give an indication if he's the first choice goalkeeper, because I don't think Roy Hodgson pays attention to that.
Come on, he does.
He might do. But he's certainly older than the oldest person I know who plays fantasy football, so it might just not be on his radar. So, but yeah, I think that'll be an important thing to look at. I've just put the fixtures on the screen as well, because 4.5 million goalkeepers, as you mentioned there, Mark, in terms of how we think about these guys. Yeah, it's Crystal Palace away at Sheffield United game week 1. Then it's Arsenal at home, Brentford away game week 2 and 3, which is a bit not as nice. Wolves at home game week 4 though. Villa away game week 5 is not so nice, but then Fulham at home game week 6. So they could be quite useful in a rotation. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly who was the team that rotated nicely with that, but a 4.5 million goalkeeper in that scenario is quite useful. So that's probably what my thoughts would be on Crystal Palace. rotate them
Yeah, I
with
think
someone.
there's going to be a lot of 4.5s, aren't there? I mean, I think we saw Fulham, I saw Leno and Pickford. Pickford, obviously, England's number one. Yeah, and hopefully stays at Everton. God knows if he goes. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of options at 4.5. So maybe you're right, especially if we don't know his first choice. But why would FPL put him on the page if he's not a first choice goalkeeper?
I mean, that's
They
true.
they know things. Cool. So okay. So Palace was not maybe the. Where do you want to go to? Your
Yeah.
stream was about Chelsea.
We
Wasn't
weren't
it? So,
anticipating starting with Crystal Palace, but such is the manner of the chaos. It's chaos week. That's what it is. We stream and just we see what happens. We were going to start with Chelsea. So what I've got on the screen now is the 4 players who have been revealed for Chelsea on top of Nkunku yesterday, who we know is a 7.5 million forward. We've now got Raheem Sterling as a 7 million midfielder, which is really nice because great price, I think. But also we kind of were anticipating a bit of a drop. Yeah, that's useful in that context. But then we've got Mudryk at 6.5. So already we've got a possible 50-50 call that people have to make a decision on. But then also, and I know you're excited about this, Chris, Reece James at 5.5, Ben Chilwell at 5.5. So they're the 5 players we know about. 4 of those have come today. Let's start with Reece James. I mean, you can't give us that reaction, Chris, and then not back it up. So
nailed. He's in the team sheet. I mean, putting aside, I mean, I've got to see all the players. Got to, and we talked about fixtures a fair bit, and we need to see how Poch is playing. But I imagine right from the start, and certainly from soon after, I'm going to have one, if not both of those. Reece James is a legend, fantasy legend. Assuming he's had time to recover and he's kind of fighting fit for this season. And if he's not, I'll be just Chilwell instead. You've got to have a Chelsea fullback or wing back, right? Surely, just that the capacity to get involved for the field. Hopefully, a tighter defence under Poch. I don't think it's going to be quite as tight as they started last season, but it's certainly be tighter than they ended it. So I'm in love with that price. If anything, I think it's a good teaser price as well. I think it could have been 6 or above, but I think. Because obviously there's a lot of question marks still, and it's a new manager, and they've got 7,000 players to fit in. But he's in. I've been doing with Plan FPL. I've been doing my team plan, and I've got him in straight away. I've got to work out. I've got about 7 players in so far, so I might need a few more. But yeah, he's absolute no brainer for me. And if Chelsea do look tight at the back, and they do look. And both Chilwell and James are playing and looking creative, I want to own them both, I think. I'm probably more interested in those two than anyone else in Chelsea, to be honest. I know he's very excited about and Nkunku. But yeah, I just those guys are both fantasy gold for me. I think I've made my point.
Yeah, you have. Well, also Pochettino is a big factor here because he loves his fullbacks to be a big part of the build-up. So it is a little while ago, but when he was at his peak with Spurs, there was a time when Davis and Trippier were very much must-owns a lot of the time. And if you go and check out the scout report that the editorial team have done on Pochettino on the website, you can have a look at this as well. And we've also done a video and podcast on what Pochettino can bring to Chelsea. In the 17-18 season, Davis and Trippier were top amongst all defenders for chances created. So Davis created 46, Trippier created 40. So it's a little while ago, but we know that Pochettino favours that style. And so that bodes well, really, for these guys contributing quite well. I suppose I'm going to come to you now, Mark, where you feel... do you worry about rotation possibly, just in the context of the fact that when Davis and Trippier were doing well that season, 17-18, we still didn't necessarily always know which one of them was going to start, because from those players in the top 5, Trippier made 24 appearances, Davis made 29, but all of the players that were sort of below them, they created fewer chances, admittedly, they were all starting 35, 36, 37, 8 matches. And so those numbers are indicative of the fact that he likes to rotate his fullback. So are you worried about that at Chelsea? Or would you be invested in Reece James as Chris sounds like he's going to be?
Well, for the opening weeks, I'd imagine Pochettino plays his strongest 11 because Chelsea don't have European football either. So that's another factor. But didn't they spend quite a lot on the young Malo Gusto in January, and they sent him to Lyon. But if he comes back, Pochettino likes the young players, so that could be an option. But I don't think he's really at the start going to be a huge threat to Reece James's game time, and for Chilwell, was there Kukurea, Lewis Hall, but we'll just wait and see. To me, Reece James is like my mortal enemy in fantasy football.
Why? Is he trolling you? mean? Is that I've got so many points from Reece James?
We all have that player, don't we? Like for me, he's never delivered, and he's always. I think I sold him once just before he scored twice against Newcastle. I think it was 21 points, and sold him just before that. So that just sums it up.
And he did it against Newcastle as well. I mean, that's that's almost deliberately cruel. It being against your team.
So much.
No, I'm actually with you. I wouldn't go far as to say he's my mortal enemy, but he certainly won't be getting a Christmas card from me anytime soon because he is very much in the same bracket for me. Because I just found him unpredictable, so I don't in any way necessarily suggest he's like a bad asset. And I do think that this year more than ever, I am interested more than ever. But I did like a game week 1 draft with Az 12 months ago, and they done me dirty. The scout team they took out the little clip from the video where I said that Reece James might be a fraud, and it went semi-viral on Twitter. I was like, oh, who's this guy? Doesn't know what he's talking about. But I was proved to be right last season because my opinion was it'll be like 1, 2, 3 points and then 17, and then like 2, -1, 3, 25 points, and that was just really hard to navigate. I do actually think that this year it's going to be. I think it's going to be better because I do think Poch will stabilise Chelsea a bit. There is that focus on the fullbacks being part of the build-up, and yes, he has that history of rotating them. But Mark, you make the excellent point there that actually it's a totally different context because he doesn't have to worry about as many different competitions. And I suppose, well, actually, a couple of people in the chat just worried about injuries as well. So Alex Jones said my issue with James was awful last season, and because he was so injury-prone. So it's probably worth keeping an eye on that. But if he's fit, I think we can all agree that they're going to be worth owning. I mean, what do you guys think in terms of about fixtures? I guess would be my only question. Chris, you seem very invested. Would you want to own them from game week 1, or would you rather wait until they've got the Liverpool game out of the way and maybe invest in game week 3?
I think the Liverpool game is definite question mark. The problem is always that thing of kind of booking in transfers from the start, right? You if you know you're going to want like for the after game week 1. Away to West Ham, home to Luton, home to Forest, away to Bournemouth. I want a few Chelsea players, at least 1, if not 2, for that period. So, anything could happen against Liverpool. Someone told me the day that it wasn't someone from the fantasy football. Actually, someone was a friend in a pub, but they always draw against Chelsea. They can always predict a draw. They think that's going to be a draw, whether it's a low scoring or a draw.
Well, the last 4 have been 0-0.
There you go. That's why you need Reece James, guaranteed clean sheet.
Yeah, double up on them.
Yeah, you could have for the bargain price of 13.5 million for Trent and Reece James, you can have 2 clean sheets. I think I probably will go with. I wouldn't probably double up at the start. I will probably take a punt with 1 and just and sort of style it out in that first match. But yeah, I think the fixtures after are so good. That fixture run is great. I think home to Luton, home to Forest, Bournemouth away. I mean, Bournemouth are not a bad team at home, but West Ham. I went to West Ham last year. Oh my God! Like when Newcastle played them, that was such a weird ground. The atmosphere. They sing the old bubbles, but after that, it was pretty much silent. And then when they were 2-0 down, about sort of 30 minutes to go, people started leaving. I think by the time it was 3-0, there was mainly Newcastle fans left. It was incredible. I'm not dissing all West Ham fans, but I don't think that's a fearsome stadium to go to. I don't think that the crowds are a long way back. So anyway, I'm getting too detailed now. People are asking about Sterling and what that means.
Yeah, let's talk about him.
7 million's tasty, isn't it?
It really is. I said when I was going through some of the Chelsea stuff over the summer, and then when I saw Nkunku coming in as well, and then Poch, I was like, I want to have a Chelsea attacker, I think. And interestingly, I think I'm possibly more interested in their attack than their defence, but because of the fixtures. Because I do think that Liverpool and West Ham can score on them. But I also think that Chelsea can score against Liverpool and West Ham, even if the last 4 have been 0-0 against Liverpool. I just think this Liverpool defence is not set up to just do very well anymore. And like Trent, I'm going to have him as well, probably. Him going into midfield is great, but I don't think they're not a team that I think is going to keep a clean sheet against Chelsea. So the fixtures make me more inclined to have a Chelsea attacker from Game Week 1 than a Chelsea defender from Game Week 1. I haven't necessarily got any incredible stats that show that they're necessarily going to do well, because when you do look at the stats for how Chelsea finished the season, they are pretty rubbish. And there is a couple of players who were doing better than Sterling and Mudryk for even at Chelsea, like Havertz, for example, actually had better stats than these two, and he's left. It's more of a gut feeling, to be honest, that Sterling is a player who has pedigree, and if the system can be built to support him properly, I just can't see how he doesn't kick on under a manager like Pochettino. And so then at that kind of price, he has the ability to go on runs where he can deliver. And so then he could. This is a guy who used to be a premium. So when I say he can behave like a premium at 7 million, I don't think that's necessarily an odd thing to say. That's just kind of how I feel on him. I need to see pre-season. Alex Jones in the chat has also pointed out that pre-season is going to be big for them. And
and where can you get the best pre-season minutes tracker? Where in the world?
I wonder.
On football, that would be Fantasy Football Scout. Premium membership. You get every minute. No one else is tracking it, as far as I'm aware. It's a lot of work goes into that, as David can attest. Just quick, before we get into Chelsea, someone in the window has asked 4 times now, so I'm going to respond to them. It's Hi, bizarrely named. Someone tell me, does every hour on the hour one team release prices? That is, it appears, the intention. Although Chelsea suddenly arrived this morning at 10:32, somewhat destroying that, but that is very much the point. Yeah, so we're thinking every hour on the hour. For how long that goes on, we don't know. The other thing that's interesting about, we were talking about this before we came on air, we've had 10 now teams, I think. Yeah, 9, is it right? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Palace was the 10th, yeah.
Palace was the 10th. So we have 10 teams. So that means there's 10 teams to go, maths fans. But if they're doing one every hour and they go up to 6 today, then that will leave us, that would be another sort of 6 teams. If it's 7, it'll be 7. We're only going to, if they do this every hour up until 6, 7, or 8, there'll still be a couple of teams left over. So either they're going to continue until super late. When do they? It was 8 o'clock yesterday when they stopped, wasn't it? I think it was 8.
I think so.
7.
Yeah,
stopped yesterday. But if they continue the same cadence, we won't have got everybody out. There'll either be 3 or 4 left till tomorrow. So, sorry, this is completely not related to Chelsea. Wild speculation. They're going to be left with a small handful to do tomorrow, starting at 10, 11, 12, 1 p.m, boom, game launch. There you go. Don't know. Just total speculation.
Heard it here first. Well, ad hoc reckoning.
Yeah, we'll be at lunchtime, hopefully, probably. I don't know. Are we? We should be. That you should definitely, make sure. If I were you, I would keep your lunchtime. Give yourself some lunchtime time tomorrow if you want to get in and get an early ID, which of course you do. Anyway, going back to Chelsea, the question I have for you, you want a Chelsea attacker. I think that's totally sensible.
Yeah.
You've got Sterling at 7. You've got Nkunku. I'll probably get it wrong every time I say it, at 7.5. Which of those two would you go with? Would you save the $500,000 and do you think Sterling, or do you think?
I think Sterling. I liked Nkunku until I saw he was a forward. The scout report on him, both on the website and when I was doing the video one as well, like putting that together, I was like, this guy I think has the real possibility of lighting things up in the Premier League. But him being a forward just takes the shine off the points, because it just means fewer points for the goals. It means any clean sheets are not going to get involved in either. Sterling has that pedigree as well. So of the two, if you were to ask me who is the more likely to do well in the Premier League, you have to just sort of, by law of logic, to kind of just turn around and go, well, Sterling's done it before. I've stuck on the screen. I just want to make a slight comparison with Mudryk as well, because he's a 0.5 cheaper again. And there's sort of, a couple of things worth considering with him. So I put a heat map on the screen. They sort of largely played similar roles, coming in from wide areas and getting involved in penalty box areas. In terms of the numbers, though, Sterling was the one who was producing points at a faster rate. So this is this is game week 27 to 38. So that's the last 12 or 13 matches of the season, because a couple of doubles in there as well. And in that time, Sterling was putting up 3.7 points per game, which I appreciate is terrible, but we anticipate that will probably go up, whereas Mudryk was just bringing in 1.9 per game. And there's some interesting stats below that which you can get more of in the Fantasy Football Scout members area if you want to go even deeper in terms of which one of them was offering more goal threat, which one of them was offering more creativity. And it's it's a bit sort of 50-50. They do play different roles within that, but I think that we shouldn't forget Mudryk. I think him being at 6.5, I wouldn't be shocked if he became the bandwagon, because 6.5 is a really good price for a Chelsea attacker. I mean, we've said before that these guys could be the new Rashford, a team that's had a big discount and then they end up forming part of the template. And then, what do you think about the Chelsea attackers, Mark?
Yeah, I was thinking of it because Sterling's had the same 3 million drop that Son has had. And yeah, had the same thought about Rashford there. Like, is the scene set for another player to explode like that? And just a big Sterling, the opposite to Reece James for me in terms of Sterling. Yeah, he's had at least 19 FPL returns in 6 consecutive seasons until the last one, and of course that last one is probably the most important one because he left Man City. But yeah, just got so many good memories with him. And if Pochettino, I think Chelsea's, out of all the teams pre-seasons, I think Chelsea's is possibly the most interesting one personally, because there's just so many questions that we hope to have answered by game week 1. And is Raheem Sterling nailed on part of the front three? If he is, then yeah, I probably would go for him over Nkunku.
Okay, so Sterling gets a thumbs up. What about in the chat? Has anybody? There's Chelsea forgot. Ha ha, says Harry.
Yeah.
Harry's obviously got the inside line to everything.
We got one person calling Sterling a troll. So interestingly
Yeah,
enough, someone who thinks opposite to you, Mark. But I see where that's coming from. I think that he was really, really great. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and then he started to troll. And then last year he wasn't a troll because we just knew he wasn't worth having. But there have been some questions about the centre forward, which probably just should touch on that.
Yeah,
and to agree with you there, Mark, in that actually the pre-season is more important, I think, for Chelsea than any other team, because we just don't know who's going to play centre forward. It could be Nkunku. We don't expect it to be, but he has played there in that position before, which is why he's been classified as a forward. So he's one option. Sterling has played sort of false 9 and at times, centre forward for City. We've seen that. So he, in inverted commas, has that in his locker. We were just talking earlier about Lukaku. I think is still technically a Chelsea player. You never know. Maybe he gets another stab at it. Who knows? Although FPL Harry still in the chat. I was going to mention this, obviously, also being a Chelsea fan. He just says, "Don't buy Chelsea attackers." Smiley face. So that's the view from the stands, is that don't bother. But the preseason will tell us a lot. I said yesterday, this preseason is they're going to be playing a lot of big teams, and so I don't know. I feel like we're going to be seeing these Premier League teams having to play their best football in preseason, which is quite useful.
Yeah, no, true. Cool. Okay, so that's have we covered off Chelsea there then?
I think we've talked about them enough. Yeah. Well, why don't we talk about Newcastle, because we've got to indulge Mark a little bit, haven't we? So
yeah.
All right.
So we've got Bruno Guimaraes at 6 million as a midfielder. We've got Joe Linton, 6 million midfielder. Isak, 7.5 million forward. And I think the big news of the day, and I think he's trending on Twitter, is Botman, because he's 4.5 million again. Is he the standout for you, Mark?
That's the first one that came to mind, because Newcastle's fixtures are horrible at first. So maybe not initially from the start, but the price difference between him and Trippier is so much bigger now. I was really surprised to see him remain at 4.5. So yeah, when the fixtures get good, it could be a nice cheap way to cover Trippier partially. He didn't score last season, Botman, but he did have an XG of 2.5, and he's tall. So this is just the general.
He didn't score, but he's tall.
He's tall.
You've got a lot of height in a lot of big lads in the Newcastle side now.
The opponents will concentrate on Dan Burn, and then Botman will score, and then we'll get Botman
this
returns.
New guy, someone was telling me, he's quite big, isn't he? I was talking on this stream, maybe it was yesterday. I was talking about the new guy come in, from Italy. What's his name?
Tonali. Mm-hmm.
Tonali. Glad you said that. Yeah, you were out scouting him. I realise you were involved in that deal, but
I was in Milan on holiday in March, so I'd love to claim a role in that. But,
but he's a big lad. I heard he's quite a presence, so it's going to be But I don't know. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Someone was telling me that. I have no knowledge at all about that, so I should chat.
Tonali might have an impact on Guimaraes. It's. I think as we said yesterday, there's versatility in Tonali and Guimaraes that could both probably play either the deeper role of the midfield three or be one of the more advanced ones. But if it is Guimaraes who's given more license to contribute and get forward, then 6 million could be quite good. We saw what he was like on that half season after his initial arrival. But again, the fixtures are a bit tough, so we'll have to wait and see. Personally, a bit of a Joe Linton fan, sticking with Brazilians.
He got some goals. What was his points last year? You've not got them in front of you. Oh, have you? I bet you have.
He did all right near the end. He had a bit of a streak. I think he ended on six goals, 5 assists, something like that. He's now scored on his Brazil debut as well. So if he starts out as Eddie Howe's preferred option on the left of the front three, he could be.
Well, so that's kind of an out of position, isn't it? Then if his class is a mid and he's playing sort of a more forward role. I know, David, you love your out of position options.
I love those. Yeah, they're big. They're big. Yeah, I mean, so I just wanted to point out, actually, by the way, Kieran in chat was actually saying the same thing as you, Mark, about Tonali coming in, could see Guimaraes play further forward. So the hive mind of fantasy managers coming together there, very good. But you've mentioned fixtures as well, and I actually just want to ask you about how you think you'd manage those Newcastle fixtures, because you're saying that you're interested in Botman, you reckon, when the fixtures get nicer. Because he's 4.5, do you think he's worth owning for game week 1? So that you don't have to book him in. You can just leave him on the bench until, I think it's sort of game week, where are we looking? About sort of game week 5, I think it is, when you're at home to Brentford, or maybe game week 6 when you're away to Sheffield United. Do you feel like a 4.5 defender it's viable to hold him there for that long, to avoid you having to book in a transfer? What do you think, Mark?
Could be, yeah, because I know I certainly try to think long term with defence and maybe shorter to medium term with the attacking lot. So if you have a good first 3 defenders, Botman could easily stay there as the 4th. If you play like 3 at the back, he could stay there as the 4th, and then he's there for that good run completely. Yeah,
it's definitely what to think
about. What about Isaac or Isaac? I always had Wilson. I never went with Isaac last year. Worked quite well towards the end as well. Everyone was in the doubles captain Isaac, and Wilson came on and scoring goals for fun, as Ron X would say. But Isaac, because he ended up getting pushed out a bit wide, didn't he? Playing a bit. Wilson was more the kind of the front player. Isaac was playing off him a bit wider, from what I could see. So, do we think? I mean, obviously Wilson's more injury prone. He's getting on a bit. Do you think the plan as a Newcastle fan is that Isaac will become the main man progressively, and Wilson will be more of a bit part this coming season?
Yeah, I think so. But then thought the same at the end of last season. Was sort of the opposite to you, and was a victim. Was totally on Isaac, while Wilson just kept scoring at this crazy rate, and was thinking, oh yeah, well, Isaac our record sign, and he's best up front, so don't waste him out wide. But it kept happening because it was working for the team. This season we're starting afresh. There is Champions League to think about, and I'd expect Isaac, if the right signings come in, you'd expect Isaac to maybe start up front. And on the left, there's a few options on the left. There's Gordon, Saint-Maximin, Joe Linton / Willock. They sort of have a good tandem down the left. So yeah.
Well, Anthony Gordon, thanks for that. We needed the money.
There's a couple of people talking about Wilson in chat, actually. There's a little bit of a discussion about what price is going to be. And Crikey, if I'm saying your name right, has gone with what I think is the case. Wilson probably at 8 million, which would be nice because it forces a bit of a decision, because you probably agree that Wilson is the better option at the moment, or at least based on form. Can you say 0.5 million with the other guy? Those are the kind of decisions that FPL want us to make, I think. In terms of other decisions, they've also given us West Ham today, and they're making me really, really like Antonio's price at 6 million. I'm not a big fan of the fixtures, but the prices are so nice. Bowen at 7 million, Antonio at 6 million. We've also got Ben Rama at 6 and Aguerd at 4.5. But yeah, what do you guys think about West Ham? Let's come to you first, Chris.
I don't know. It's so difficult to know what you're going to get, isn't it, with West Ham? It's like a box of chocolates. I think, Antonio, a couple of times he started the season really well and then kind of faded. So if we're going to get that again, I remember when Benrahma did the same. He started like a train and then sort of like drifted off a bit. So at 6 million, it depends how your team's been. I've been messing around with a couple of drafts. It is harder than it looks, even though these prices come and look favourable. So yeah, I think that's a possible kind of sort of second or third forward, and 6 million is probably the price you can be looking at if you're going to want to have Haaland and Salah and Fernandes and and Trent. Suddenly you are going to have to start ratcheting down quite quickly your kind of your other players, and I think a 6 million punt on Antonio. Yeah, I like that at the start of the season. If he plays in pre-season, if he's not, if he's going to get some minutes at the start, I think I'll be aware that it's probably something I'll end up moving on. But I think that's a very tempting price. Bowen, yeah, again, he's 7 million. We said Sterling 7 million. I guess that's a really fair price. And I like Bowen. I've never owned him that much, but he's obviously for a while was the main points sort of deliverer for West Ham. But then they kind of they struggled a bit. Obviously, I don't know how they're going to deal with. I mean, I had European football last year, slightly higher level European football, I guess, again this year. So I think it depends who else they bring in. I don't know. I'm interested in Antonio. I think Bowen probably won't be something I go to. I could see a lineup starting with Antonio, but that sort of price. But I think it's because of the price as much as it being West Ham, if that makes sense. I don't think the fixtures are that bad. They've got Bournemouth. I mean, I've got Bournemouth and Chelsea. Bournemouth away is not awful. You've got Luton, Brighton and Chelsea. Don't know, anything can happen in those matches. And then they have got City, which is not good, obviously.
Yeah, they start off kind of average, and then they get really horrible.
They start off and they go down.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad is a West Ham fan, and when he saw the fixtures, he was like, "Why is it every year we're one of those teams that's right now in the bottom in terms of like how teams are doing on the season ticker? They always get pulled all the way down because they end up playing sort of something like 4 of the top 6 in their first 7 or 8 or something crazy. So they have every right to feel aggrieved at the fixture list, and I sort of wonder if there's some kind of alphabetical preference here, and that's why they always end up with the wrong end of the stick. But yeah, I think it's going to be a wait and see. Unfortunately, I think I would love to have Antonio from the start because the price is so nice. And was talking about it with Neil this morning, actually, just in our workspace, and he was making the point that actually Antonio probably still is the first choice, despite kind of the things that have happened around. Because like Skamaka had his injury problems, to be fair, but even with Ings around, Antonio seemed to still have the nod. So yeah, he's probably the one I'm most excited by. I know Bowen is going to be the one that draws a lot of attention, but I think it's just that potential value in Antonio that excites me.
Made a good point. Alex Jones made a good point about Rice moving on, which I'm presuming is pretty much done now. They've agreed the fee, haven't they? 100 million odd, and they're just working out, whether they're going to pay with buttons or. But I think that will have a big impact. Look at that! You're slightly moving that fixture ticker in there. No, but yeah, I think Rice moving, is going to have a massive effect on that team. Not easy player to replace. That's why you don't go for 100 million if you're a player that can be easily replaced, right? So yeah. No,
well, I was looking at the thing. They're being linked with Harvey Barnes and with that money. West Ham quite a bit. This is a shame because I was kind of semi-interested in Benrahma going into it, having seen how he compared last season. He was their penalty taker by the end of the season. He had more shots on target than Bowen, stuff like that. He had a good rate of minutes per chance as well. But even last season, he was switching between bench and starting lineup quite a bit, and it's only going to get worse, isn't it, if they're going to use that Rice money to improve the squad. So that's a shame.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Getting Barnes for Rice seems, well, just not really like replacement. I think it's definitely going to impact. I think it'll impact their defense more than it'll impact going forward, but by no means do I think that it won't impact them going forward. I do think it will damage their attack, but certainly their defence I think are going to have a difficult time because, watching him do this for England as well, I describe to some people that I think there's a Declan Rice zone, which is the bit of the penalty box that's kind of either the left-hand side or the right-hand side, where what he'll do is he'll come out of nowhere and he'll sort of surprise the winger who's cut into the box, and he'll just move in and sweep up. And the way that he just helps screen the back four is incredible. So losing that ability is gonna be hugely damaging. We've got Aguerd at 4.5. You'd like to think, based on how their defence got on last year, that Fabianski's back down to 4.5 again. Him at 5 million was always so silly. He's a bit of a FPL icon because he's just so good at making saves in a team that faces lots of shots. So if they are able to, I don't want to say replace Rice because I don't really think they will be able to, unless they've if they do at any point start keeping some clean sheets, I will be probably interested in Fabianski because I do think they'll have to face a lot of shots, and then he can maybe land in that little sweet spot. But it's really a wait and see, really. Unfortunately, well, let's talk about Liverpool because I think there's more. We haven't had the chance to talk about that yet. Yeah, they talked about it on the Scoutcast last night. We had Liverpool yesterday, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on. We have to start with Trent, 8 million defender. What's your initial reaction, Chris, to that?
It's a pain, isn't it? You want him. And I kind of want him more because he's 8 million. Is that wrong? I kind of was wanting him in my side anyway. But like, when he was 8 million, it's like, well, I've got to have him now. It's like, what's going on? It's like my wife buying shoes. So I think 8 million. In that he's playing, kind of effectively out of position as well now. We'll see if that's how it ends up. But that's why he has certainly played, in a more of a midfield role, coming forward even more than he was. You've kind of just one of those players you've kind of got to have, you think, but it does pose problems. Like when you start drafting, at the moment I'm drafting between, live prices and sort of, mixed prices, as it were, and it's hard. It's hard to suddenly make the kind of make that 8 million. That takes up that when you've got that's for premium, right? That's for defense. That's a premium defender. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good for the game because it's a challenge because it means that not every team's going to have Trent and Salah and Haaland in. Because if you also want Son or Fernandes, then you're going to struggle to get all that. So I think it's a good price by FPL. I think it's a challenge. I kind of and as Alex James said, he was a bit of a mixed bag. It wasn't the kind of Trent performance of before. Sorry, I'm going to turn off Slack in the background. It's making a noise. So it was. Sorry, Ian, stop messaging me during stream. I'm trying to do something. I think I'll have him. They've got decent run of fixtures. I think I'll have him, but it is going to cause problems, is what I think. So, that was a lot.
No, it's good. I agree with you. I think we want FPL to be asking these questions of us. It's nice for us to be like, don't want to pay that, but I guess I will. As you say, it's like your partner buying shoes. Completely agree with that. Mark, speaking of people buying shoes, I have had experience in the past of offering up the cheaper alternative. There's some non-branded ones over here that say Andrew Robertson on the Sol for 1.5 million less. Where do you stand on us being able to make quite a significant saving on the Son decos that are Andrew Robertson?
That's beautiful.
Well, if they're sticking with this inverted Trent 3-box-3 sort of system, Robertson, he's kind of nullified as a centre back a bit, isn't he? I don't know if he still managed to get forward a bit towards the end, but it's good to have a decent gap between them for the first time in a while. It does ask questions, similar to sort of the Trippier Botman sort of question of, well, can Robertson cover Trent? But personally, I was looking forward to not having Trent anyway, so that price rise is an excuse not to, but it might be kind of
That's
alone.
interesting. So where are you going with Liverpool then? I think we're all, Liverpool didn't have the best season, obviously. They've got decent fixtures, they're bringing some good players. What's your representation going to be? I think they've got pretty good fixtures to start with. Are you, sort of Chelsea and Newcastle side, but Liverpool can score in any game. Are you thinking further forward then? Are you thinking Salah, obviously, but are you thinking, Nunes? What you think? Where are you thinking with your Liverpool options?
Still possibly, yeah. Still, as part of the Trent decision is that would probably quite like to start with Salah and Haaland, and therefore something has to be sacrificed somewhere. And I'm not even that confident in Liverpool keeping clean sheets. So if you don't think your defender's going to keep clean sheets, then do you want to spend 8 million on him? As good as he is with his assists, he had a great run towards the end of last season. But I was just been writing up about Soberslay.
Say again.
Szoboszlai, right?
See if you can say it at the same time twice. That'd be great. Yeah, for him. You sign him.
He is a set piece like maestro, and I'm not saying he's going to come in and steal them all off Trent straight away, but he's really good at them. He's like a highlight reel of great free kicks and corners and long shots, and he's brilliant. So there might be some element of sharing them with Trent there, but I think in reality, I'm just looking for reasons to not have him. But it's going to hurt to not have him. If he has high ownership, it's going to be a nervous sit through Liverpool matches for sure. The attackers, it's
Nunes is 7.5, for instance, as one of the prices revealed yesterday. So would you be tempted? Bit of Darwin? Will he evolve into a complete forward? Oh, sorry. No Firmino.
Or will he continue to win the Darwin Awards? That's the question.
I'm just looking forward to that Sven Botman goal because there's so many Botman puns that we haven't had a chance to use yet. I
like your thinking, Batman.
So Botman returns.
This is gone.
Botman returns. Botman forever.
When he starts a match, Botman begins. Stuff like that. So Darwin, well, isn't he quite a bit down the... Gakpo's ahead of him. Luis Diaz is probably ahead of him. Jota too. So I mean, if he gets a run in the team and he starts to become the forward that justifies the fee, then that they spent on him, then yes, but not from the start.
And what about Mac? What about Big Mac? McAllister from Brighton obviously was one of the three midfielders we all had, one of or two of at some points. Is he going to play? What do we think? I mean, I've got no idea how he's going to set up. Is he going to become more of because he sort of became more of a defensive midfielder at times for Brighton. Do we think that's where he's going to be playing for Liverpool? They're not short of attacking players, so.
Well, I was reading some of what the other people online think how they're gonna think Liverpool are gonna line up, and it does sound like if they're gonna have Trent alongside someone else in midfield, that there'd be two advanced midfielders. It does sound like McAllister would be one of them, but he probably won't have penalties, will he? And that was quite a big part of his Brighton.
That was definitely one of the differentiations between him, Matoma, and March, wasn't it? That when they got a pen, it's like we were all sitting there watching Brighton score loads of goals. Well, who scored it? We need to know who's assisted.
Salah did miss a couple, so there could be that first
one.
Yeah,
I can definitely see Salah handing the penalties across someone else.
Nah, yeah, that's not happening.
Well, I was just having a look while you guys were talking at some Trent numbers, just on the question of him versus Robertson, and tying in actually with a comment in the chat from, I think it was Robert Ducky, that if you get Robbo, you'll still end up looking over and wishing you had Trent. And I think he could be right there, because if we look at what they achieved offensively in the second half of the season, or the final third, I suppose, between game weeks 27 and 38. Interestingly enough, they actually had the same number of touches in the penalty box, but Alexander-Arnold, 25 chances created, Robertson 15. He created 10 big chances, which was the second most of anyone in the league during that period. The only one who was better than him for that was Bruno Fernandes. So it's, he's keeping company with a number 10 there, creating chances for other people. His expected goal involvement in that period was 4.29, which was basically just about two more than Robertson on 2.37, and Trippier was the only defender to have a higher XGI than Trent in that period of the season. So I personally, I think he is worth the money. And in terms of the question about versus Robertson, I think you will get what you pay for within that. And in terms of their defence, yes, they actually only kept one clean sheet between game week 30 and game week 38. it was just the consistency of points for Trent that made him highly owned again, because he actually only got one double figure haul. So between game week 30 and 38, it was 5 points, 9 points, 5, 5, 4, 7, 7, 13, 1, 4. So it's nothing special, but the thing is it's someone you don't have to keep moving on if they're going to be very, very reliable. We have to see what impact their new sign is going to have on their defence, I think. But I don't know. I think it's going to be difficult not owning Trent. And I don't think there's going to be much love for Robbo, because you're right, Mark. In that new system, he just plays left centre back instead of left wing back. So, yeah,
it's either Trent or nothing really. I think unless someone's coming in at 4.5 or something in Liverpool defence. Like you, the problem is he's gonna, if you don't get him in, he's going to be very hard to get in. Getting an 8 million defender back into your team is going to require some major surgery later on if you're not starting with him, and especially if he starts to creep up. I don't know if it's how likely that is, or that he'd bump up in value. But he starts getting up to 8, 2, 3. It's going to get harder and harder to be able to work out how to bring him in, because whereas if you have him, you take him out, you go, well, it's bonus money. I've got an extra, I've suddenly
tax rebate.
Slash right, yeah, it is. So I don't think that's necessarily a good reason to do it on its own, but it is a factor. It's kind of like, because if I don't get him at the start, I don't know. When I'm going to easily get him, because you're going to want to have. We've been tempted with all these mid-price, but interesting options in the midfield, and Son's come down, Fernandes, Sterling. You saw Mbeumo the day as a striker play in the middle. I want Matoma. I want some Brighton action. I've been doing a team, and it struck. If you have Trent, it's difficult to kind of make it without getting some really tough decisions. But then if you don't have him in, I just coming back to it, it's going to have to be a major. You have to just sacrifice some of the big players. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a good price. I think it's a really good price. I was a bit concerned when the prices started to come out yesterday. It was like, oh no, they've underpriced it again. And I think maybe in some places they have, but I think at least a few key players. Haaland's at a sensible price. I think Salah's fair enough price to be at where he's at. I think Trent's at a challenging price. So a lot of those regular players that everyone would have before, it's going to be very hard for everyone to have again in the template, I think. So I'm hoping there's not going to be as strong a template. I mean, that's what I was hoping. It never is the case.
The template will always find itself, but you want the template to take 3 or 4 weeks to find, rather than be evidently immediate from the beginning. And it just means, because when you think that Trippier 6.5 as well, Trent 8 million, and a lot of these other must-have players have all gone up, it does mean that I do think we're going to have a decent selection of people to choose from, and a lot of differentiation between different teams. You've made a good point there in terms of how you start the season, because I'm a big fan of always making sure that I've hit price points rather than necessarily players specifically. I mean, obviously I'm going to want Haaland, but bearing in mind that there's a defender in the game who's worth 8 million, who has incredible FPL pedigree in a team that, yes, right now isn't keeping clean sheets, but has done in the past and very easily could within a few weeks start keeping them again. You need to be able to have either a Trent in plan, or if you just have Trent from the start, then you've got your plan right there. Then it means if he fails,
that is your plan.
That is your plan. Yeah, just have him anyway. And so then moving away from, you can shift from one price point to another. I mean, Trent is a bit of an outlier because I don't really think we're going to see anybody else at the same price. But knowing that he's there, you have to be able to make some space in your squad to get to him in a world where he explodes in the first couple of weeks, which he definitely could. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Should we move on to talk
space? You can look at other prices. There's some other teams with space makers.
I was just going to say, why don't we have a look at Fulham, because there's some potentially decent prices there. I mean, Mitrovic has gone up to 7.5, Pereira's gone up to 5.5, but we've still got 4.5 million defenders in Tete and Ream, which should suggest the rest of the defence is going to be that price. Leno is also 4.5. There's been talk of them being involved in a defensive rotation as well. Where do you see Fulham fitting into the budget enabler section this year, Mark?
The defense had a decent run around. I think it was surrounding the World Cup break. But what's their early fixtures like? I can't remember. But I haven't really thought about it. Really, Mitrovic is semi-interesting. He missed 4 penalties last season, Mitrovic. So
yeah.
A big question about that is, are they going to sort that problem out? But
well, I can go through their fixtures if you like. So it was Everton away game week 1, Brentford at home game week 2, then Arsenal away game week 3, City away game week 4. So 2 really horrible ones in the middle, but then Luton at home game week 5, Palace away game week 6. So it's sort of it's sectioned into little pairs there. Possible rotation for defence, perhaps. So you don't really want anyone against Arsenal and City, right?
Yeah, it could be the same sort of thing that we said about Botman earlier. Like if you want a fourth defender to save for future weeks or to rotate, if you can find a nice rotation, then a Fulham option could be one of those really. Tim Ream seemed to have a. Why does that name come to mind? Oh yes, just after the World Cup break, he just went on a bit of a run, didn't he? Tim Ream, the Ream team.
Yeah, I don't know. And Pereira has obviously been sort of boosted up in price, so he's kind of a little bit more an awkward price now. But he did chip in a fair few points, right? Yeah, I don't know. Mitrovic is difficult, isn't it? I really like Mitrovic as a striker. He's a sort of striker I want to have as like second or third. But again, looking at the price of my early drafts, I'm already going down to the likes of Enciso and Adebayo, trying to make up the midfield really at the moment. So yeah, I think Fulham would have to have really enticing fixtures early on for me to want Mitrovic in. Although I think he's previously he was a great striker that didn't quite make it, and then last season he, until he got before the suspension, he was incredible, and I think he is a really good quality forward. And Fulham did really well. I mean, I guess the other question is like, did Fulham overperform last year? Are they going to do the same again? Like, as an Everton fan, Silva's sort of seen his seasons sort of starts well enough and then maybe kind of drops off a little bit. I don't know. I think Fulham probably overperformed their expectations a little bit for certainly large swathes of the season, not all of it. So yeah, I don't know. I think Mitrovic, as a player I'd want, but I wouldn't have him. Yeah, the 4.5s, but yeah, you're going to be playing with 4s and 4.5s in your defence, and you're going to be kind of picking one from like 5 or 6, I think, by what price we've seen so far. So I definitely think, yeah, people like Ream are, worth considering. Pereira's probably not going to get into that many. Again, 5.5 might end up being one of those prices. It's kind of a awkward. I just need to fill a gap. And he's got a good pedigree, but yeah, I suspect there'd be better options. What do you think, David? Are you tempted by any of those, or are you just going there?
To be honest, I think it's Leno is the one I'd be most intrigued by, because he's the same price as those defenders, and this is a team that has the capability of obviously allowing a lot of shots. We've seen that, and Leno is a very good goalkeeper. He did very well at Arsenal, and he was either second or third off the top of my head. I can't remember which way round it was. He was second or third for most saves made last season. Earned himself about 37, I think it was, extra points because simply of just saves. And so if they have a particularly good run of fixtures, then he could be one to go for if they are going to keep clean sheets with a lot of saves, which again, you probably know this having watched Silva at Everton. Like, he's not exactly a coach who's renowned for controlling games by possession and defending well. Not to say that he's bad at that, but like, he's more of an attack-minded coach, which means that the game's going to be open and there's going to be lots of opportunity for that goalkeeper to make saves. So he's probably the one I'd be most interested in. And it's just whether or not I can fit him in a rotation with another goalkeeper that's similar.
We've got a super chat. I was just going to
say, I want to take your thoughts on this. So this is from Noob Master, who has submitted a super chat, who said, is it wise to keep the same team from last season if you had a decent score, or copying your mate's team who won that league, asking for a friend?
Asking for a friend. I like that, Noob Master. That definitely wasn't a question from yourself. I can see that. I mean, you can't keep the same team as last season, right? Every there's going to be different prices. There's going to be, you probably can't afford the same starting team as last year with some of these price changes. So you've got to look at it from scratch, and you've got to start looking at sites like Scout and looking at the fixtures, looking at the pre-season form. I won't go on about the pre-season team. It is, even the free stuff of the pre-season is brilliant. We do a lot of free stuff always for the community. It's not all about grabbing money, although I'm very grateful for $4.99. But the pre-season stuff is really important this season, I think, to keep an eye on. Who's playing where, who's in form, because there's quite a lot of transfers and moves are going on. So you can't keep the same team. I don't think copying another person's team at the start. If you can get hold of Fabio's team, maybe, or if you can get hold of like we've got a couple of former winners, including last season's winner, Ali Guns, which is a great name, great. That's a real name, but that's his tag. He's going to be basically one of our pro pundits this year. So he'll be revealing some draft teams. So you can copy his. He won last year. Is he going to win it again? I don't know. He's had pretty good form apart from that. Yeah, it's certainly hard. I've only even been about the top 5,000 as my top square. It's so hard to do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. There's starting the season. You've just really, you'll see loads and loads of drafts and loads of teams, and you'll see if you watch our channels and other channels and creators, you'll see a sort of template evolve. And I think inevitably we all get influenced by that, and we all end up switching our decision a bit towards that, even if we don't completely follow it. So I think that's a sensible starting point. I'd look at what the template evolves is, and then have a bit of your own character in there. Sorry, that's a long answer, but there you go. Stay away from
I was just going to say,
you can't share with your thousands of thousands.
I was just going to say, I was waiting for Harry to answer that question. He might have a slightly different answer. Although specifically, I think there's a specific question here from New Master about whether or not you should copy your mate's team. So you've already given us your view, Chris, on whether or not it's okay to sort of follow a personality who's renowned for being good at FPL. But if you're covering
like
off,
Harry, quite well.
Like Harry did do very well. But if you're covering off, your mate from the pub or one of the fellow dads from your kid's football team, is that going to land you in serious trouble if you're copying them? What do you reckon?
And who the mate is?
If your mate is Harry or Ali Guns, then. But I think there's a question here. Sorry, takeover, Mark. I'll come back to you again. But like, there is a question in this, and not just the start of the season, but going forward about EO and monitoring other teams. When I had my best season ever, I watched a lot about EO, and I kept sort of seeing what teams were best owned in the top 10k or the top 100k, whatever. And I think there's a site called Live FPL, which is also part of the Scout Network, which is really good for pulling that data apart and for you being able to see who else in your mini league, what teams they've got, and what players around you and your sort of rank they have. And that's definitely worth checking out. Because I think I usually wouldn't worry about that until, maybe sort of 10 games in or something. I think early on you've got to, maybe get influenced by a template, get a team you really love and you're excited about, and then see where you are, and then it's about whether you're trying to. After about 5-10 games, you start thinking about how can I advance or against other players, or how can I protect my rank. So yeah, sorry, and you were going, Mark. I interrupted you. I was doing plugs. What were you saying?
No, well, one of my biggest weaknesses as a manager is, I'm a bit of a FOMO, fear of missing out sort of manager, and do sort of care too much about ownership percentages and templates. Don't want to, do sort of get nervous about players you don't have hauling and firing you down the ranks. But I suppose one of the nicer ways to play is if you always had that one differential. The end of last season was a struggle because it was so hard. I found it so hard to rise because
you were doing really well last season for most of it, weren't you? You were quite high up, and then you had a bit of a
and then it slid because having a couple of Brighton mids felt essential because they had so many doubles. But then everyone has Haaland, everyone has Trippier, everyone has Rashford, and it just became a bit of a standstill. But what would have been really nice was to have that differential.
Right differential. What you need is the right differential.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I remember Gameweek 1 last year had Kulusevski as a differential, and he hauled, and that was it. That was a great start to the season. So it'd be nice to do quite similar this year. Maybe have that fourth mid or that third striker be someone who's just under the radar. Really, that would be a nice way to play. But it's all well and good saying that now, but let's see what that last Friday before the deadline. Let's see what happens.
Especially
Harry
as well.
Harry is a good person to copy, and he will also be one of our pro pundits this year as well. But he does a lot of great stuff his own channel as well. He's incredible. I was amassing the ranks of all our pro pundits and staff for the day. Just astonishing, actually. I didn't contribute much towards it, but like I think we had 140. It was like 650 seasons worth of experience, which is quite good. And I had 140 top 10k finishes, 3 winners, and I don't know, thousands. Not 1,000. We had like 14, top 1,000 finishes and stuff. So yeah, it's surround yourself with smart people, and you'll end up making the right decisions. Usually, there's not many people that. Usually, the winner disappears again. Like a winner from not this year before didn't really go. There's a guy called John Reeson who won one year, went out for drinks with him. Actually, he was a nice chap. Never really came back into it again. So often there's a bit of luck. But if you want to look at players that are finishing regularly in that top 10K, those are the players to follow because they've understood the kind of game of it, the model around it. Have we got a new price?
I've been refreshing the F5 key on my keyboard. I think might be broken.
It hasn't come, has it?
Yeah, no, I'm not seeing one. I'm not seeing
We're
one.
expecting one.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping it'd be Man United. So we're sort of hanging on a little bit in many ways to see if there's going to be another one. I won't ask you about the weather, I promise. But
we've got plenty. There's other teams I haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, that's true. Should we talk about Burnley? Because Burnley came yesterday, and we've got a couple of 4-5s in their defence. We've got 5 millions in their midfield, and Zaroury was someone that we've been told by some of our Burnley connections was potentially exciting because he's an attacking winger. And so for him to be 5 million, I don't know, potentially kindly priced it. Brownhill also at 5 million, and he plays a slightly more advanced role now. He was very much a holding midfielder before, but they've now got Cullen, who is plays that role for them now, which frees him up a little bit. And Brownhill got a lot of assists last season, for example. So fixtures are a bit stiff, for them at the beginning. Sort of like very hard to be like wading through.
I think starting away to City's not or home to City rather is not.
Exactly, so it's not nice.
But they've got Luton and Forest in away in there, and they've got Villa, and who knows what state Villa. I mean, actually Villa are pretty bloody good last year, weren't they?
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it's not. It's a mixed bag of pictures. It's almost not. You almost want them to be 4 millions, don't you? Like they're almost too much to to punt on. I mean, 5 million for midfielders, like you say. I don't know these players really very well. Zaroury, again, you've done that. There's a great podcast you can still listen to. It's obviously on video on the channel as well, I think, about, and there's some articles on the site all about promoted teams. So check those out because that's where most of us can be doing. They haven't been following these teams week in, week out because it's a very different Burnley side that obviously went down. Everton bought half the Burnley side, and I don't know where the rest of them went. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not really. Are you? Is there anybody that tempts you? I kind of think if they had a 4 million keeper, I might go, oh, that's interesting. But I think there's going to be better options at 4.5, surely. Because they play more attacking as well. They're not. I don't know. They're not.
It's the fullbacks. I think it's the fullbacks I'm most interested in because they play inverted fullbacks. So they're a bit like a poor man's Man City now, which makes a lot of sense, obviously, with company and the fact that they have considerably less money than them. And so, but the way that they're deployed on the pitch does mean that they got forward quite a lot. I haven't to hand got the numbers of the goals and assists that Roberts on the right hand side and Maatsen on the left hand side got. Maatsen is not actually a full-time Burnley player, and so he was on loan from Chelsea. Is he going to stay? They're not sure. Burnley fans are kind of hoping that they either sign him permanently or if they can find a like-for-like replacement. When you play inverted fullback, the advantage that you have is that by sitting in the midfield and not occupying the wide spaces, sometimes the defence will leave that space open because they think it's not going to be utilised, and then all of a sudden you burst into that position and you are able to act like an overlapping fullback, but you have considerable less oversight and coverage because their defenders can't go and man-mark you when you're playing inverted fullback, and so that it seems to be how those guys were able to make such a difference in the Championship. It is, of course, a step up, and a lot of Premier League teams will be a lot more used to defending against inverted fullbacks because it's definitely an elite player's game, really, to play that type of football. But I'm certainly excited to see how that's going to go. And it's definitely a wait and see. I want to see how they adapt. I think they're going to get destroyed quite a lot of times because when you play possession-based football and you try and go toe-to-toe with some of the best teams at that in the country, and you haven't really had to do all that much backs against the wall defending in the Championship, it could expose them a bit. But in some of the games when they're at home against favourable teams, I quite like the idea of starting a Roberts or a Maatsen or whoever their Maatsen replacement is. So they're probably the ones I'm most excited by because they can offer the best balance of they've got the best spread of potential points in goals, assists, and they will keep some clean sheets just based on ball possession in a couple of games. It won't be all the time, but that's how they'll defend. So I think they're the ones I'm most excited by personally.
Some guy called Sconto Rigger, I don't know who that is. He's mentioned about 4 goals and 6 assists each.
There we are. He's got it. There's a double figure attacking returns for them both in the Championship. So 10 each. So, and that obviously doesn't include fantasy assists as well. So having not reviewed all the footage, there's possible a couple of other ones in there as well. So yeah, thank you, Sconto Rigger, whoever you may be.
Whoever you may be, you mystery man.
Yeah.
Go and watch some more articles.
Yeah.
So, is there any team we haven't covered yet?
Well, so what I was going to say,
Forest?
well, there's
Forest.
there's Forest, and I'm refreshing as well, just in the hope that we get one more team. It'd be great if we do. I was just going to say, let's talk about Forest, and then let's maybe talk about who you guys have already put in your teams. Chris, you've obviously been making some drafts using Plan FPL, things like that, because I've got a five-a-side team. There's only 5 players that I'm interested in so far, but yeah, we'll come to that in a second. Let's quickly talk about Forest, and then we'll head into our first drafts, which are, you take them with a pinch of salt for now.
United yesterday. Did we do Sheffield United yesterday?
Oh, I don't think we did. Do we want to do Sheffield United? I mean, I'm not first personally.
Oh, come on!
He says with a Lundstrom shirt behind him.
Surely you, with your Lundstrom shirt, sat there. Lord Lundstrom, you can't be so fickle.
Well, I
Let's
can.
scan through those pretty quickly. Then
I'm a fantasy football manager. Like I'd never met a more fickle bunch. Never before has there been such a hive of scum and villainy as fantasy football managers. We pick up and drop teams at the drop of a hat. I don't care about Sheffield United. I just care about one man only, and he doesn't play for him anymore. That's my view. So you guys,
can we just read through the prices quickly, and we can talk about it. So we had Norwood midfield at 5, Burge at 5, another midfielder, and defender. Oh God, I wish I'd not.
Do you want me to say it for you? Ahmed Hodgic. Yeah.
Okay, that's how I would have said it.
That guy,
4.5, and McBurney, I can do that. 5.5 as a forward. I don't know this. I mean, obviously Norwood and was somebody's familiar, someone new. What have you done your Sheffield United?
I actually haven't. I haven't done my video and podcast yet.
You're so uninterested in Sheffield United. You haven't even done it. You've done Luton and Burnley. Just not bothered.
Mark might be able to tell you more than me. Don't worry, guys. This isn't just me being. I'm not like a secret Sheffield Wednesday fan. The plan is to do a Sheffield United video. We just haven't sorted it yet. Yeah. So, Mark, you're gonna have to dig us out here. Otherwise, Blades fans are gonna
know everything about Sheffield United.
Blades fans will be sharpening their swords and coming for us.
They've got Palace at home and Forest away. They've got. It's not a terrible start. So
the one that's because football manager bias here, but I used to love buying Ahmed Hodzic when he was at Malmo, and it turns out that he scored 6 goals last season for Sheffield United from 32. So 6 goals in 32 from centre back.
Wow,
pretty good.
That was really useful to have, wasn't it?
Is he priced at 4 million and playing out of position? Because if he's not, I'm not interested. I'm sorry.
No, he's 4.5 and very much in position, but so yeah, not quite Lundstrom levels, but it's something.
Okay. All right, that's enough Sheffield United then.
Yeah, we've placated the Blades.
And we have a final roundup, so sorry, yeah. Apparently, William Brister says this is all becoming a bit boring. I don't think he means us particularly, which is very nice, William. I'll command your house and criticise your, but that's fine. I won't. FPL should just release the prices and get on with it. Well, they're very. To be fair, they've only just started it for 2 days, and I think the game's probably going to launch. I think it'll launch tomorrow, but it could be Thursday. It'll definitely launch this week, unless there's some major hoo-ha. It'd be amazing if it doesn't launch this week. So I think they will. So it will come soon. But they give everybody a bit of a chance, get a bit of, a bit of preamble. Oh, we need a little bit of, a little bit of kind of warming up. Ask your wife. Move on. Anyway. Too much?
Wow.
Am I before we share?
Yeah, we'd just like to apologise for the technical difficulties.
Sorry, so Forest then. You want to talk about Forest. You don't want to talk about Sheffield United. What do you want to say, David? Come on.
Nottingham Forest. I just look at their fixtures and I'm like, nah, I'm not interested, unfortunately. I think they're just they're just really not very good away from home. And there's just, so looking at their fixtures then, it's Arsenal away game week 1, Man United away game week 3, Chelsea away game week 4, Man City away game week 6. So in the first 6, they got their 4 away games in their first 6. They're terrible away from home anyway. And then add in the fact that those 4 games are Arsenal, Man United, Chelsea, and Man City. You could not ask for a worse start to the season. It's just the absolute pits of they're just rock bottom, absolute rock bottom. And so their defenders aren't good enough to go into a rotation unless. Because, Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home, maybe they are. I don't know. They're about the only area I'd be considering because the midfielders and the attackers are just too expensive to go into a rotation. That's me. I just think that their fixtures are too horrible. So,
but apart from that, you're very positive.
Yeah, apart from the fact that they've got terrible fixtures and badly priced players, I think they're great. So, yeah.
I think that the best price we've seen so far was yesterday, which was Gibbs White, which I think of all the players there. Again, you're right, maybe not the start of the season, but I'd be interested in he's probably the most the one that I would certainly be looking at closest. One you scored did quite well, didn't he? Scored a few goals. It was back in last year.
He scored six in the last 4 matches.
Yeah. So, obviously if he starts that way again, then he's going to get a lot of admirers. Although 6.5 is again a challenging kind of price. We've got to see what all the forwards at, of course, blah blah. But that this isn't priced like obviously they're not just been promoted, but they're not priced like that either. They're priced like a team that they're expecting mid-table. A lot of players are going to want. So I think Forest, with those fixtures, I agree with David largely. I'll keep an eye on Gibbs White. But I think everything else I'm probably not going to be that bothered about until we kind of get past that first 5 or 6 anyway. So anything for you in Nottingham Forest? There's a next founder of Fantasy Football Scout somewhere sitting, rolling over
and I was worried about what Mark Sevens was thinking about as I criticised his team.
He's working too hard. He's not interested.
Yeah, and I think it's important that he remains Mark and I remain the other Mark. I think that's the way it should be. And
you're Mark number 1 now. He's not. He's not desperate. Black Box obviously are a partner of ours as well. And as is as well writing for us. So we keep them close. No one ever leaves. But yeah,
Brennan Johnson's sort of done an Mbumo, hasn't he? And he was a forward that's been turned into a midfielder now. So that could be something. He had a bit of a slow start last season, but he ended on 8 goals, which is, it's okay. Forest seemed to get better.
They did get better towards the end, didn't they? I mean, I can't depends what they're going to do in the transfer market. It can't be as chaotic as last year, where they were just buying everybody.
Well, they've been linked with Iheanacho, which would, if that happens, that sort of impacts both Johnson and, certainly Awoniyi. We'll just see how many they get first of all, and also which ones.
Fair enough.
It could be an absolute litany of signings again. But speaking of a litany of signings, nobody makes more signings than fantasy football managers every season, and I suppose that brings us quite nicely onto where your drafts are currently at. Yep. Which I know that we might get some stick for saying the D word at this particular point in time because we haven't even got all the players yet.
Team reveal.
There we go. Team reveal straight away. But I mean, we can. I'm keeping these very minimalistic. I've just got 5 players that I want at the moment, and I'm waiting to see everybody else. But
that's good. So who's the 5 in your template?
Well, so the 5. Well, so we'll do mine first because mine will be nice and quick. Haaland is an easy one. So I haven't worked out how much this is all going to cost me yet. But Haaland, Alexander-Arnold, Sterling, and Burmo and Bell are my 5. Bell is an easy one because he's a starting 4 million defender who isn't a fullback, admittedly, but because he's a left-sided centre-back in Luton's defence. But we were talking about Luton being a defensive rotation for the start of the new season, possibly with Everton. There's a couple of games where you would feel comfortable starting them, maybe when they're at home. And just having a 4 million is going to be almost essential. I think you're going to have at least one. I can remember Gameweek 1 drafts in the past where I had 2. So having at least one is going to be important with the high prices we've got. Why not make it someone who's definitely going to start games? So he's an easy one. And Burmo, 6.5. Brentford's got some really nice early fixtures, out of position midfielder. Sterling, I like Chelsea's fixtures from Game Week 3. And I think they've got attacking potential for Game Weeks 1 and 2, as we discussed earlier. You can go back and watch that if you missed that bit when we talked about Chelsea's attack. So he's in my 5-man team at the moment. It's a 5-a-side team with no goalkeeper at the moment. So, yeah, they're the 5. Haaland, Alexander-Arnold, Sterling, and Burmo and Bell. But, Chris, I believe, and Mark, you might have some more players on your list.
Yeah, I've done a plan. I've used Plan FPL, which, again, part of the Scout Network these days. We're getting some really cool stuff coming, actually. If you a Scout member at some point, you'll be able to, we're working on it, hopefully be live next week or so. You'll be able to do your whole planning through that, and your Rate My Team will work through it and everything. So it's a really good planning tool, and it's now part of our network, and they're really good guys. So check it out. It's totally free to use at the moment, just to do basic planning. So I've been working on that, and they've got a mix at the moment. They've got a hodgepodge of live prices because he's updating it. The guy called Reese, who's updating it as prices come in, and predicted prices, which is, I think, came from Live FPL, another part of the network. Very weird, but because Ragaboli, who worked on FPL, something we'll be announcing a bit more about this week. But he came up with a load of great prices, and a lot of people have been using that. So based on those, there's a long caveat, right? I've got this is my team so far, and this has literally been completed during this kind of not that I wasn't giving my full attention, but during this stream. So I've got rid of Trent. So I've got Pickford, I've got Pickford and Steele rotating goalkeepers, not rotating that brilliantly, but not bad. So I'm, as an Everton fan, got to have Pickford. I think 4.5. We're going to be tight to beat. We're going to be clean sheets. He's a good shot stopper. So Pickford in nets. At the back, James. I was quite clear about that earlier. Which James is in, despite the Liverpool fixture. Tarkowski is going to be the other one I'm putting. So I've got to make Mendy somehow, and he's rated at 4. We don't know what he's actually going to be rated at yet. But he's rated at 4 in this game. I think it'd be between 4 and 4.5. And I've also got in a City midfield defender. At the moment, it's Diaz, but it could be. We'll see what the price actually come out. So those are. I'm starting with a 3-5-2. So those are 3 across the back to start with. Other defenders will be at the moment are 4.5 and a 4. That's Bell, as mentioned before, and Henry from. I want a Brentford defender. So there's a couple to choose from, but he's in the moment. And then across the midfield, I've got Salah, Sterling, and Bumo, Matoma, and Fernandez, which I think is an incredible midfield. I can't quite stretch for Son, so I've had to. I definitely want Brighton as well at Matoma, and assuming they're the same price, I'll go Matoma over March, I think. And Boomer, I do think is a good shout. I do think Brentford are a really decent side, even without Tony. And he proved end last season he could step up a bit. Sterling, I've been persuaded by this cast to take a punt on. I'm kind of thinking it's but there's a lot of options. So you can take a punt at like 7.5 because you can move that on quite quickly. Salah, in that I've not got Trent, I've got to have some Liverpool is my kind of no-brainer fixture. And then up front, at the moment, I've got Haaland and Ciso, and then I've got Adebayo, but that's just again because he's 5 million. I don't know yet. Once I've got the 5, I've got at the moment 1.5 million to play with. So some of these things will be tweaked a little bit, but yeah, I'm actually quite. I was really struggling this year with Trent, and as soon as you take Trent out, it suddenly kind of opens it up a little bit. Because there's some really good options at 5.5 in defence, but at 8, it's like 2.5 million just sucked into the defence. So what do you say? Rate my team. Rate my team. Rate my team. What do you think?
Thoughts? Question mark.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. I like it. I think Fernandez he would have been in what would have become a 6-man team if I knew Rashford's price and position. When I know what position and price he is, that'll help me work out which one of those two I want. But some Man United representation, I think, is good. What do you think, Mark? What's Chris's team shaping up like for you?
No, it's really good. It just sort of emphasizes how many midfield options it feels like there's going to be this year. I was just thinking similar. It's going to be. It's going to be hard to.
So mid now. Magic 69 is already kind of raining on my parade or doing something on my porridge. Magic 69 is suggesting Ciso as a mid. We don't know that. Would it be a mid? He was a great option for me last season. Notorious Nerd, he said he's waiting for the Mount price. Really? I mean, come on. Sort yourself out. Go on then. Sorry, Mark. So you're quite in favour of my team. I appreciate that. How about yours? What are you thinking?
Well, mate, just early thoughts. I think part of this wasn't helped by Mbeumo becoming a midfielder because I probably would have had him in anyway. But just thinking there's so many midfielders of ones and so few forwards that maybe a 3-5-2 would work. But the problem with that is there will be starting 4.5 mids, but there probably won't be starting 4.5 forwards. So you're sort of screwing yourself over a bit there, squad-wise. But yeah, I think working from midfield backwards, Salah, one of the Arsenal midfielders, either Rashford or Fernandez. And the useful thing is that Son is priced similarly to all of that area. So there's always...
Similar, but more, right? But yeah, I guess it was 5 to 9. Yeah,
speaking of United, they have literally just dropped the prices at 14.20. So... yeah, thanks for that, Man United.
And Rashford is 9 million.
Yeah, Rashford is a 9 million midfielder, which, to be perfectly honest, makes me think that Fernandez is even more viable now because that's, well, I don't know. That's just me. That's just my initial reaction. Dalot is 5 million, Sancho 7 million, and Shaw is 5.5. So Rashford is easily the most attractive out of those four, I think. Paying 5.5 million for Shaw is, I don't know, a possible challenge. Let's have a quick look at their fixtures. Wolves at home, game week 1. Spurs away, game week 2. Forest at home, game week 3. Arsenal away, game week 4. It's very choppy, good and bad. Brighton at home, game week 5. Burnley away, game week 6. So Mark, what's your initial reaction? Rashford as a midfielder at 9 million.
It was good timing because I was going to say that there was going to be one vague spot in the defence for a Man United defender, which I'm quite pleased with that Luke Shaw price, so maybe him. And then, either Rashford or Bruno. Probably Rashford for me personally, but the Bruno price was very interesting. I must admit, I'm not normally a fan of his, but that certainly sort of raised eyebrows. So like those early games do make me want coverage at both ends of the field for them. And going back to the draft briefly there, it's just Arsenal made, Man United made, Salah, but then you've got Sterling and Mbeumo, a Brighton midfielder, and probably more. So it's kind of hard. Haaland up front, of course, a 4.5 goalkeeper. But there's Luke Shaw, interesting.
Luke Shaw 5.5. I think that's too bad.
It's a fair price.
It was great last year.
Definitely a fair price. It's just you always have to ask yourself what he gave you before. Is it worth the same to your team to maybe miss out in other areas? So I might actually just quickly come back to you, Chris, because of you talking about Fernandes. Do you feel like your current draft can stretch that extra 5.5 to get to Rashford?
I can stretch to Rashford. I've got some room there, and I probably would. If it's a head-to-head and it's 0.5 and I can do it without destroying the whole team, I'm going to start with Rashford and then, see what happens. So I think I would probably, in that he's still a mid, in that is that price. I think that's a fair price based on what he did last year. I think they've got it right. I think we're very quick to, everyone was very quick to criticise PL Towers last year when they did, thought the prices were too low, and I think they're getting it. There's still a few that raise eyebrows, but that's part of the game, right? I think they're getting it better this year. There's certainly what they're clearly doing is everybody and it's an obvious thing, but everybody that performed well last year has been given a big boost. It's not a big sort of price raise. It's not like just half a mil or whatever. They've been really bumped up, and I think that really makes the game more interesting. Rashford. I've already changed it while we're talking. Fernandes has gone to Rashford, so I've already
made the change.
I have no Arsenal. I have no Arsenal at the moment, so I might have to then see what the Arsenal options are. I might then have to abandon the Sterling pick, which was only in there because you kind of persuaded me earlier, and I think I had Odegaard before, and we're going to have to do some more tinkering to get him back in. I would want at least one Arsenal.
That's why
I quite like a 4.5 million Ben White, but that's not going to happen.
That's why it was okay to go without Trent, because Man United defender, Arsenal defender, Man City, although that's a game you don't want to play, but there's some good options there, and if one of the Arsenal guys is 5, if they'd be straight in, someone like Ben White, but Pedro Porro, love a bit of him.
Just making noises now. There's someone saying Magic 69 who was dissing my Enciso pick, or wasn't. He was saying it might be moved position. Is saying Rashford or Saka. If you're given the choice, if they're the same price, would you? It's going to be hard to get them both. If they both be 9.
Both got really nice fixtures. It's going to be hard to have them both, as you say. Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I'm already thinking about
Arsenal's fixtures are pretty good, aren't they? I'm going crazy not having Arsenal. They've got Forest, Palace, Fulham.
I mean, I think with both of those teams, I think that it's definitely worth investigating how you can get in there for cheaper. Because I'm just doing a comparison with Rashford and Fernandes, and there's definitely, I wouldn't be too shocked if they matched each other for points in the early part of the season, and you've saved 0.5 on Fernandes. So between game weeks 27 and 38. And so again, this is from the Fantasy Football Scout members area, or just a snippet of it. So if you want more of this, then make sure you check out the members benefits and sign up for the package that's right for you. But basically, between game week 27 and 38, Fernandes was offering 4.6 FPL points per game, Rashford 5.2, so admittedly it is more, and Rashford was the bigger goal threat and the bigger penalty box presence, so in effect we've got 4 shots per game for Rashford and just 3 for Fernandes, and shots on target 1.8 per game for Rashford, 1.2 for Fernandes. Shot accuracy was 45% for Rashford, 41% for Fernandes. But interestingly enough, Fernandes actually had a higher goal conversion rate when he was on target, and Fernandes is miles clear for creativity as well. So He was creating 3.8 chances per game. Rashford creating just 1.2, and it was 1.1 big chance per game created for Fernandes, and just 0.1 per game for Rashford. And interestingly enough, we were talking earlier about big chances created just total between in that period. Fernandes was by far and away the biggest for that in the whole league. So he 14 big chances that he created, 4 more than Alexander-Arnold, who was second with 10, and then you had 4 players, one of which was Mbeumo actually, joint third for 7. So he's got like double the amount of big chances created of the third best for that stat towards the end of the season, and has a bit of goal for himself and could possibly be involved in penalties. And so Fernandes is by no means a bad option, and not that far off, in my opinion, off Rashford. Rashford's all about the goals, not that much assists. Fernandes will get some goals, but will have much more assists. And so with those prices, it makes me want to consider Ødegaard as well over Saka potentially. I'm still thinking let's not rule out Havertz. I'm not necessarily saying let's go for him, but we have to give the players who I think are cheaper than these 9 million mids in these attacks that have so many options. I just think we've got to do due diligence here and really work out how savings here and there. I don't think it's that much of a downgrade to go Fernandes is what I'm trying to say in a very long-winded way. That's where I'm at with that.
Havertz, do we? Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can have Havertz in your starting lineup, but we'll see.
No, I mean, I absolutely won't. I'm just saying don't rule it out. That's all. It's very...
Well, you have, but don't. This has been great. I'm sadly I've got to go. We also
we do. Yeah, we do need to wrap up, don't we?
Scout also covers Champions League fantasy. We got a partnership with UEFA, and I've got to have a call. So, but please do like, subscribe. We have 76 likes. Come on, there's over 500 people watching. Like the channel, please, and do subscribe. And I just want to answer one question, because someone asked it earlier, in case it wasn't obvious, and obviously a lot of new players don't necessarily know. Will all the prices be available when the game launches? Yes. Basically, somewhere, I expect the game is sat there ready now to go. We're all suspecting to be this week, but it's all leading up to this. So yeah, as soon as the game launches, I'll have all the players in, and you'll get full analysis from Scout and other people on all the player prices and stuff, and everything will update then. But yeah, so as soon as it goes live, all the prices will be there. So yes, don't worry about that.
Absolutely.
Thanks for liking. Keep liking.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Yeah, thank you for reminding me, Chris, that you do have to go. So I'll wrap up now. And just quick reminder to anybody: if you haven't already signed up for Scout membership, now is the time to do it as well. Head to the website and you can get all of the benefits that we talked about. The season ticker we've had a look at today, that'll be there in an interactive form, and some of those tables that we went through in heat maps are all available. But yeah, that's all from me. So goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me. Thank you very much.
Goodbye from me.
Cheers, guys. See you next time.